It is a fact of life that school policies are influenced by local, state, and federal politics. On page 182, you can see a chart describing the various political influences on schools, including economic conditions, social values, mass media, educational research, and world events. At least 10 groups of stakeholders will influence educational policies during your career. These groups can include parents, students, teachers, administrators, taxpayers, ethnic and racial groups, educational researchers, business and industry, and political special interest groups. Figure 6.2 describes 5 major dimensions of political politics that influence teachers: accountability, political pressure, beliefs about content and pedagogy, legal rights and responsibilities of teachers, and, of course, limited resources. The 10th Amendment gives the right to manage education to the states. Local school districts are in charge of the day-to-day operations of the schools, but must follow the laws and curriculum specified by the state. The school board consists of elected officials and hires and guides the superintendents. Parents play an important role in the education of their children. Parents influences the decisions made by their local schools through PTOs and advisory councils. In an effort to improve schools, school districts across the country are restructuring their management plans. This can also be known as school-based management or shared governance. Parents and school staff make decisions for their schools based on issues such as budget, supplies, and scheduling. State governments play a large role in education. States are responsible for setting standards for certifying teachers, levying taxes, determining evaluation of teachers, and deciding on which textbooks should be used. States also have 3 branches of government. The legislative branch makes laws regarding school boards, state boards of education, divisions of school districts, and higher education funding. State courts interpret the laws and hear cases regarding educational concerns. Finally, the governors make budget recommendations and appoint educators at the state level, such as the Virginia Superintendent of Schools. The State Board of Education is the highest educational agency in the state. State boards ensure local school districts adhere to educational regulations, accredit schools, advise the governor and legislature, and collect data. The federal government also plays a large role in education despite the 10th Amendment. This is because the federal government recognizes that education promotes the success and well-being of the country. In addition, the 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection under the law. This amendment is frequently cited in Supreme Court case decisions for educational-related issues. The federal government passes aggressive initiatives to influence education. Presidential platforms have also had a tremendous impact on education. President Bush sponsored No Child Left Behind. President Obama has sponsored a blueprint for educational reform, also known as a race to the top. Today's teachers are becoming leaders in order to help improve schools. Teachers are playing large roles in school governance and professional development. Teacher leaders coach peers, organize professional development workshops, write grants, involve businesses, and mentor other teachers. Equitable funding for schools is a huge challenge. One source of funding comes from the federal government in the form of block grants and entitlements. Some entitlements include the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the Bilingual Education Act. States provide a significant amount of funding for schools, which often is about 44% of a school's operating budget. Most money for education comes from sales and income taxes. Local governments assess property taxes to pay for schools. Usually, local governments use the real estate tax to fund schools. Local governments provide about 43% of revenue for schools. Property taxes can lead to disparities between school districts. The financial crisis hurt educational funding for schools. School districts lost revenue from property and income taxes. Some districts had to lay off teachers, while others had to cut programs. School districts are still trying to recover from the recession. The California Supreme Court ruled that the quality of a child's education should not be dependent upon the wealth of his parents and neighbors. In 1973, the Supreme Court said that unequal tax basis did not violate the Constitution. Full funding programs require states to set per-pupil spending for all districts. Vertical equity means allocating funds according to educational needs. Additional financial support is given to low-income students, English language learners, and special education students. Some states also consider cost of living analysis when analyzing the allocation of funds. School choice means that parents get to choose the schools for their children, including private schools in some states. Proponents argue that school choice creates a free market and forces public schools to improve. However, opponents argue that school choice leads to increased segregation by race and income. Vouchers are government funds that allow parents to purchase educational services at the schools of their choice. Some states allow vouchers for private or public schools. Voucher programs have few regulations over the school and are controversial. To obtain additional funding sources, many school districts have established coalitions with the private sector. Businesses may provide money for special programs such as mentoring new teachers, sports, or even for new buildings. Private support for public education totals about $3.6 billion a year. The number of for-profit private companies operating public schools continues to increase. Proponents believe that for-profit schools offer needed competition, but little oversight is given to the quality of these schools. Charter schools are independent, innovative, and outcome-based public schools. They operate autonomously from the school board. Understanding the politics and funding in education helps you to be knowledgeable and empowered. You should be actively participating in the political and decision-making process.